Yes, by the way, that's helpful. That's a
Oh, we
good
got another new
reminder.
person. There's another new person.
All right, so welcome everyone. Of course, I'm the club administrator, past president. Right now, our president, Malona, is unable to make the meeting. She's on the Ivory Coast or somewhere on the west coast of Africa, and she had a power outage. So hopefully she will be able to join us soon. But I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the meeting and just immediately switch the meeting over to PDG Will Miller, who's going to introduce our guest speaker this evening. And before you do, Doug, thank you. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead, Will.
Okay, just a second. I've got an incoming email from one of the attendees. I've got to answer.
Okay. Well, so while he's answering that, like I said, Malona, our club president, she just fairly recently flew with her mom back to the Ivory Coast to take her home after an extended stay. And we had coordinated a speaker for this month. And I looked at Will and said, what about your cousin? And he immediately got a hold of Doug, and Doug replied, and we are just so thrilled to have you on. So are you okay, Will? We good?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So with less than a week's notice, Doug agreed to talk with us, and I'm thrilled because when was the last time any of you got to hear from a Disney imagination engineer? And that's not all Doug has done, but he's originally from Norfolk, Virginia. In fact, we grew up together. His mom was my French aunt by marriage, and so Doug was younger than I, but we knew each other quite well.
And I like with all our family pictures, I'm always like sitting on your lap or something like that.
Yeah.
And some reason I glammed onto you of all the family members. I'm always like, hey, I keep looking at these old pictures and I'm like, well, Anyway.
Yeah. Doug said he relishes the picture where he looks like Charlie McCarthy sitting on my lap.
Yeah, I do.
Anyway, he worked for Walt Disney Company for 20 years as an imagination engineer. And I remember at one point he told me, he said, I can't believe they actually pay me good money for sitting around and thinking great thoughts. But that's one of the many things that he did with Disney. He got a degree in communications at Virginia Tech, so he and I have that in common. We both went to Tech. And a film degree at CalArts, a school that Walt Disney personally set up before he died. His first animation, Machine Story in '83, achieved highest honors, and it's listed under Rare Films. I sent all of you a copy of his brief bio, and there are some links in that if you want to see more. He achieved many other accolades during his long career in the arts, including personal notes of thanks from people like Michael Eisner, the chairman and CEO of Disney. And he also worked in design, in film, animation, and out-of-the-box productions globally. He also worked on the shows Expo 86 in Vancouver, Canada, Expo 90 in Osaka, Japan, Expo 92 in Brisbane, Australia. And at that time, it was for a World's Fair production company, BRC Imagination Arts, formed by a former Disney Imagineer. During his long career in film and animation, Doug worked with many greats, including Robin Williams, Joanna Wentworth, Claudine Longet, and Diane Keaton. And he's got many stories about those and many more. He's semi-retired and lives on a volcano in Hawaiian Islands. So, Doug, I'm going to turn things over to you. And again, thanks for being here.
Oh, well, thank you. Good introduction. Well, my story to Disney. As a kid, I really wasn't a big Disney fanatic. I didn't get exposed to a whole lot of Disney in Norfolk, Virginia. I had a friend growing up there who his family would take him to Disneyland every year. So I would hear stories of Disneyland from a friend. Um, I so I go to Virginia Tech, I get a communications degree, and I come back to Norfolk, and I'm not really sure what am I going to do with this communication degree. And there's a theater near my house playing Pinocchio. So I go see Pinocchio, and this was like, like 1980, and Pinocchio was done in 1940. So I saw that film and I went, whatever company made this film, 40 years has gone by, but this is pretty cool. So Pinocchio is really, my first really big, and I'm as an adult, I really didn't see these films as a kid. So I then at that point went, okay, I want to go to California and work for Disney. So I go to Florida for 2 years and work for a friend of mine's mom down there. And during that time, I take a trip over to California and visit some of the different film schools. And I find Cal Arts and I went, oh, this is it. It's the California Institute of the Arts in Valencia, California. So it's a school that Walt Disney put together before his death. And he wanted to have all the arts under one roof. So there was dance, there's music, there's theater, there's, fine arts, there's, filmmaking, and there's Disney animation, basically. There's a whole Disney animation department there. So when I went to that school, they go, okay, you have 2 years to come up with a project. Other than that, just go crazy in the school. You don't have to go to classes if you want to, but if you want to, you can go to any class you want to. So basically, I went to every single class I could possibly go to for 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, I came up with this little film called Machine Story about the history of machine technology done in kind of things that metamorphose. So like, a spear turns into a bow and arrow, or, a car turns into a spaceship. So everything kind of metamorphoses. So I made this film at Cal Arts, and it did really well in that somebody at the Academy of Motion Pictures saw it and had it shown at the Academy of Motion Pictures. It was up for an Academy nomination. Now, it didn't get it, but in the audience was this man, Bob Rogers, who saw my film and, called me on the phone and says, I'm working on a project for the Olympics here in LA, and I want you to come work for me for 2 weeks. Well, that 2-week job lasted 10 years. And during that time, so he was an ex-Imagineer, and he was doing shows on his own for World's Fairs around the world. But at the same time, Disney was opening Epcot in Florida. So I was working on a bunch of Epcot projects and working on stuff for these different World's Fairs around the world. So at Epcot, I was working on the GM project back in the early 80s. And so I got a good taste of Disney, and I got to work with a lot of the Imagineers, but I also got to work on other projects, for these other World's Fairs, like in Japan and Australia and Canada. So I got a really good taste of all these shows. So in 1993, so Disney keeps trying to hire me away from this company. And in 1993, they gave me an offer that I can't refuse. So I have like 5 days off between the old job and the new job. So in 1993, I go work for Disney. And that would last another 10 years also. I would do that till 2003. So with Disney, what my position was, it was called a creative executive. Now that is like, an oxymoron. It's kind of like jumbo shrimp or military intelligence. It's just two words that really don't go together too well. But I was a creative executive. What that allowed me to do was they would come to me and say, okay, General Motors has this idea for, no, they don't have an idea. They want to sponsor a project in Disney World, something new, something different than what they had. So they would tell me, okay, come up with, 15 or 20 ideas. So I'd think about it. I'd go home, go out in the world and come up with these ideas. So then I'd paste all these ideas up on a bulletin board in front of these executives. And they'd go, okay, well, we like these 5, get rid of those 10. So then I would take those 5 ideas and develop them a little farther, doing things like rough storyboards, writing up, little, descriptions of things. And again, it would be, okay, well, we like, idea 1 and 2, but we want you to combine idea 4 and 5 into one idea and then come back to us. So then at that point, they would allow me to hire artists to come in and make, I would do little stick figure ideas. And they would come in and do really pretty drawings. And we would also end up doing these things called an animatic, which was sort of like a film storyboard of what the ride would be like. So I would do all these temporary, versions of the ride to try to sell the rides to these companies. So I got to take the projects from, first little stick figure drawings, right up to, they spent millions of dollars. There's a line of people waiting to get in the building, and these people are going to go see my show. So it was very rewarding to see, these little rough ideas get turned into big projects like that. Some of the projects I worked on at Disney World, I don't know if anybody's been to the Tree of Life in Animal Kingdom. There's a big giant tree. And inside that tree, there's like a 3D film that, has things that like do things to you. So that was one of my projects there. I also worked on the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland and Space Mountain at both Florida and California. And there was a ride called Rocket Rods that only lasted for a little while at Disneyland that I worked on. But I also got to work on projects for, Tokyo and for Paris. And it was a lot of fun because they would send me to these locations for 2 or 3 months just to go work on a project there. So it was a very good, good project. The company started getting away from what I liked doing. It started getting more into like superheroes, and it liked buying franchises and then developing the franchise like Masters of the Universe, or I just never, I was into the Disney stuff. So around 2003, I basically lost interest and said, I'm moving to Hawaii. And I moved to Hawaii. So that's kind of the journey that got me from, Norfolk through Disney and then here to Hawaii. So, some of the people I got to work with, you was talking about Robin Williams. There was a show for Disney World at the MGM Disney Studio Tour, which is now the Hollywood Studio Tour. But when it was Disney MGM, we hired Walter Cronkite and Robin Williams to tell the story of how animated films were made. Now, this was the old days when people drew, this is before the computers. So we had a little show there at Disney World. I don't know if anybody saw that one, but that was a very popular show. And getting to work with Robin Williams was, a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time with him. And Walter Cronkite was really pretty cool too. He was a very nice man. So that was one of the projects. Some of the other people I got to work with, he was talking about Diane Keaton. She would later be a project I worked with an art show. She was a lot of fun to work with. But yeah, that's kind of, the journey there.
That's really cool. Well, when you and Doug and I did a little pre-meeting before this, you two had this wonderful conversation going. Do you
About what was it, guys?
yeah, well,
What was the conversation about?
do you remember? I just
Look,
how many-
I've got Alzheimer's disease. I forget half of everything I ever say.
I
No, I think we were talking about some of the luminaries that Doug had met, Claudine Longet. I don't
Well-
think when you met her, you didn't know who she was. Is
Well,
that
Claudine Longet was not a Californian. No matter where I go, I hang out with the craziest people. So yeah, so I run when I moved to Hawaii, I ran a post office for like 15 years, and this cute little French gal would come in all the time, a little tiny thing, and we'd talk French, and she was very, very friendly. And one day, this guy comes in, and he's mailing something to Aspen, Colorado. And I just say to him out of the blue, oh, do you know Claudine Langer? Because I knew that's where she lived. And he goes, Doug, what are you talking about? You talk to her all the time. You've been talking to her for the last 5 or 10 years, I'm like, oh, no. So finally I got to know who she was, and she came back in, and I had her sign pictures, and she's a sweet, very, very sweet lady. I mean, a little, a little controversial past, but so that's how I got to know Claudine Langer. Another one was, oh God, well, I just said her name again.
Diane Keaton.
Diane Keaton, yes. So the Diane Keaton story is kind of interesting. It's not really Disney related, but it's Hollywood related. So when I was working for Disney in California, I had a friend who would tell fortunes, and she would do it by taking your hand and drawing it, tracing it on a piece of paper, and then she would draw stuff inside the drawing, that her spirit guides would tell her, In the middle of this particular reading, she tells me, her spirit guide tells her that a famous movie star is going to contact me very soon. A woman. And she says, I think her name is Diane, but she wrote Diane, and she wrote Diane Cannon, but she wrote a question mark next to Diane, the Cannon part, And I was like, oh, yeah, right, sure, movie star is going to call me up. This was on a Sunday. And 3 days later, on Wednesday, out of the blue, Diane Keaton calls me on the phone and says, oh, I'd seen you on TV, and I'm getting ready to do an art show with, with paintings of clowns. And I saw you had clown paintings in your house. So we ended up becoming friends through that way. And she tried to get me to go work for her at that point, but I was already done with California and like ready to move to Hawaii. And so I didn't work with her, but I got to be good friends with her. And I'm trying to do a project similar to what she did in the future, and I will be calling on her in the future to help me with that project. So I expect there to be more Diane Keaton in my life in the future.
Doug, you mentioned that as postmaster, and particularly where you live, that there are some other very interesting types of people
I'll
in
talk
the area.
I mean, the post office, each chapter of my life is weirder than the one before. So this one is so I run a post office, but it's a very remote post office here in Hawaii. So it's not a government post office, but it is. It's basically something they call a contract station. So my clients are mainly people that are off the grid who are trying to hide from the world. So majority of my post office box holders were like witness protection program people, spies that had gotten, that had retired, for a while too. And I don't understand why. I was getting all these Chinese spies coming in, and what these Chinese were doing here on the Big Island, I have no idea. They all left all at one point, but they had 2 or 3 of them with their wives, and they were constantly buying stuff on Amazon. So they had good budgets. But yeah, I was telling him 2 of my clientele that, were kind of interesting so I had the grandsons of Richard Nixon and the grandson of Spiro Agnew. Now they didn't have a box together, but they both had boxes there. And as I would talk to them, I found out that they were both in the macadamia nut business. And what I found out is there's these giant macadamia nut farms here on the Big Island. And there is where all the money that Nixon and Agnew walked away with, they put it here and are hiding it basically on this Big Island because they own all these mac nut farms that their grandkids now run. Their grandkids are nice. They're surfer kids. Couldn't be nicer than, And I never said, hey, Agnew's over there. I know what's going, I played it cool with them, but I figured out along the way, oh, okay, and I looked it up online. Who's owning these? Oh, it's the Nixon family, and or the Agnew family.
That's
So,
yeah, that's something else. So you mentioned Diane Keaton and her love of art. I see behind you all sorts
well, what this is,
stuff.
recently I kind of redid part of my house, and I have a big shelf of like weird toys, things that I sell on eBay, but I'm kind of displaying them all. So if you look over to my, let's see, over here, you can kind of see, where is it, over on this side or on this side? There it is. So down here, there's like You can see kind of a pink Cadillac. I don't know. Can you see the pink Cadillac? That's like the Elvis
Yep, there
shelf.
we go.
I got an Elvis shelf. I've got a Beatles shelf above it. And then there's Star Wars down below. Let's see if I can see Star Wars. Is that the Star Wars side? No, there's a Star Wars
Yep.
side. So yeah. So yeah, I've got a big collection of toys that I collected along the way, you know. And what I'm doing now is also selling off everything on eBay, you know, just because, you know,
Oh, there you go. Right, pitch into the eBay.
And one of the things I sold on eBay, I was telling you about too, that when I worked at Disney, I put together this magazine about all the things that are wrong with Disneyland. So when I was living there, a friend of mine came up with a paper bag, and he had been living in California his whole life, and he collected every article of anybody who had died on a Disneyland ride. So, you know, somebody was on the Matterhorn and they fell off and, you know, got squished, they had the right. So I'm like, what do I do with all these articles? So I took all the articles and I made like a fanzine, but I would take the Disney advertisement campaign, like, you know, what's gotten into the Matterhorn, you know, something, and I would combine it with the article about what's wrong with the ride. So I put out one of these issues, and then suddenly all these people that are working with me at Disney are, oh, I've got this article, I've got this article. So I became the depository for all the articles about what's weird
Oh.
about Disneyland. So I made about 15 of these magazines over the 20 years that I worked there. And the deal was I didn't sell them. I would just give them away to people. It was kind of an art project. And recently I found there were collages, you know, I did cut out things with little pieces of paper. And I found all the collages here recently, and I sold them all on eBay. I made about like 10 grand selling all the original collages. So I'm out of those, and I want to make new ones, you know. But I used to give them to, like, you know, some of my friends that were there, like Tim Burton, you know, you know, and Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, because they all went to school with me at CalArts.
Oh,
So they would
wow.
of it. When I was living in Glendale, California, I would see Michael Jackson all the time at this toy show. Now, this is before the internet, where you could buy things on the internet. So if you wanted to buy antique toys, you had to come to this toy show that was like 2 blocks from where I lived in Glendale. And if you went early in the mornings, that's when, you know, people like Dan Aykroyd or, you know, the celebrities would be there. And I would see Michael Jackson there all the time. And I knew Michael Jackson was a Disney fan. So, you know, one of these shows, I walk up to him, and I had about 4 or 5 issues. And, you know, I go up to him and I go, you know, and he was disguised too, all right? So his disguise, let me tell you. So he's got a big afro wig on. He's got a bright orange, like varsity high school jacket with cowboys and Indians all over it. Bright orange bell bottoms. And then, just to be weird as heck, he's taken rouge and he's put 2 round circles on his cheeks. You know? So is he trying to be disguised? I don't know, you know. And then, just to make it even weirder, and you can look this up, apparently he didn't bathe a lot. So
Oh,
he would douse himself with cologne. So you're like 20 or 30 feet away from him, and you can barely breathe, you know. You know, I know he's doing all this to keep people away from him. So when I go up to him, I said, listen, I'm sorry, you know, I don't want to, you know, I know you want to be, you know, incognito and stuff here, but I make these Disney magazines, and I wanted to give you a set of them. And, you know, so he looked through them, and in his little voice, he goes, are these stories true? You know? And I said, oh, no, they're only as true as the media, you know? And he laughed in that little laugh. And so he looked at some of the stories, and he was really happy with it. So at the end of the day, I saw him walking around. He kept all the Disneyland Babylons under his shoulder and walked into his van with them, while the bodyguards had all the other toys and stuff he bought. He hung on to the stuff. So yeah, Michael Jackson was one of my readers for that mag.
that's you. You had quite the experiences. If you don't mind, Doug, I'd like to go ahead and share that one machine.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Machine Story, absolutely. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
about a 3-minute show there. Is
Let
it a
me
way to
see
put
if
it
I
up?
can find that real quick here.
I'll tell you.
Um,
And literally, that's what gave me my career, you know, for everything. Everything clicked after that.
While you're looking for that, Alicia, Doug, tell folks why you're not worried about hurricanes where you live.
Well, so, you know, everybody went away. Is anybody there?
well,
Yeah,
we're
she's
here.
good.
Okay, the
Yeah.
picture one, but that's okay. I'll talk to this
Yeah.
screen. So, we get
Got one
hurricanes here in
screen
Hawaii,
share.
as you have seen in pictures where yes, things get really destroyed. But the island I live on is called the Big Island, and it's twice the size of all the other islands combined. And it's shaped like a big giant croissant made of volcanoes. And the little town I live in, Kailua Kona, is in the like armpit, the crux of that croissant. And it's not really that pretty because we're only 800,000 years old. So this island kind of looks like a West Virginia strip mine. But everybody
At
knew.
Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless
Come on.
does. They charge
Yeah, you gotta have ads.
you a lot.
No,
We charge you a
Dude.
little.
okay. Go ahead.
So the Hawaiian kings had like, Waikiki was one of their big places. Lahaina was one of their other royal places, which are all very beautiful areas. But those areas get hit by hurricanes. And the ancient Hawaiians knew that. So whenever their wives got pregnant, they would bring the pregnant women to this island and have them live in the little community where I live because it's never been hit by a hurricane. Now, the island is big enough that the other side of the island can get hit by hurricanes, and it does. But we'll have a sunny day here because the island's so big. And these volcanoes are so gigantic. I mean, the volcano Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea are the two volcanoes that this island's made of. And Mauna Kea is taller than Mount Everest if you go all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. But it sticks up like, I think, 16,000, 18,000 feet up. And that basically stops any hurricanes from hitting us. It's like a magnet, it doesn't like the cold air because we always have cold air up there. So when these hurricanes have cold air, they just move around it and skip around this area. So this area never gets hit by a hurricane. Now, climate changing and the world is changing, so something could happen. But they have maps going back like 200 years, and you can see the hurricane come right at us and then turn, come right at us and then turn. So it's a really nice, safe place, but it looks kind of like a West Virginia strip mine.
Well,
Okay.
alrighty then. With
With
that,
palm trees. Imagine palm trees in a West Virginia strip mine.
okay,
Okay, here's a little machine store.
yeah.
This is what I
Okay.
did.
You want to make this big, Alish?
That's about as big as I can make it.
Can't.
I don't hear any sound, but well, I hear the rooster in my yard. How come there's no sound?
You hear it? Nobody can hear sound?
I can't hear sound. Now the sound is kind of important, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Yeah, I'm not hearing the sound, but that's okay. The sound, so with the sound on there, there was a guy at CalArts who saw me working on my film and he says, "Hey, I like your film so much, I want to do the sound for it." And he was another student there, a guy named Dane Davis. Now, he would go on to do like a lot of Hollywood films, and he did all the sound effects for, what's that film with Neo? Oh, come on.
The Matrix.
The Matrix. He won the Academy Award for sound effects in The Matrix, So I got that guy to do the sound on he did this sound on this film and a couple other films I worked on just for free because he liked my films. But anyway.
Now, can anybody hear the sound? No.
Well, it's not playing.
Not right now.
No,
it's not-
no, not right now.
When it
Hold
was
on.
playing, no,
No.
I didn't hear anything. Is there anything I can do to make that up? Oh, wait a second. I'm trying clicking on, I made the picture's bigger now. I got a full screen picture, but I still have no sound. Well, I'll just talk over it. So the idea was, when I was in LA at that time, there was a Russian constructivist art show that involved a lot of geometric shapes in black, red, and blue. It's that Russian constructivism. So I'd seen that show and I was kind of trying to use that. And also around this time too, the Olympics were going to be happening, and they were using a lot of those Olympic symbols, of how swimming or archery or stuff were done with these kind of they're called isotypes is what those symbols are called. But the idea was going through the history of machines from, the first, bow and arrows that it takes you up to basically the spaceships. And I did this by drawing. So I had a stack of papers and a Sharpie magic marker. And I drew each one of these by hand and then, put it under the camera and took a picture of each one by hand, one at a time. This is way before computers. Are you guys hearing the rooster in my yard?
Yeah.
I got chickens and roosters, and my neighbor has pigs. So yeah, this film made the circuits. It got picked up by a company called Pyramid Films in Santa Monica, California.
I like that.
What's interesting about this Pyramid Films, and everything keeps coming back to Michael Jackson. So anyway, Pyramid Films in Santa Monica was this film company that distributed educational films. So they saw my film and they were distributing it and sending me money for many years. And they actually gave me money to make another film. Now this place, Pyramid Films, super rich guy in California, it's his hobby. So he builds this building for the company that is 2 pyramids built together. So it's wood pyramids, but the top of the pyramid is a big glass, top piece of the pyramid, and the rest is all wood. And between the 2 pyramids, there's like a river that runs through the 2 of these. So, I would go to this place and, it was fun working with these people. They would eventually sell the company, and they didn't sell the company. They sold the building, and they sold the building to Michael Jackson's plastic surgeon. And this plastic surgeon would use those pyramids with his clients and put them right under the top of the pyramid and do his operations with them under the pyramid. Anyway, that's another weird story. I'm hearing other voices in there. Is somebody talking to me, or am I just hearing things?
No, I think somebody has had something playing in the background.
Oh, I didn't know if there was a question.
No.
So yeah, the Pyramid Film story was even another weird. Yeah, LA was so full of weird things.
Yeah.
Although
So Doug, you mentioned an art project that you're working on now, or at least have in your head.
Yeah. Let's see if I can show you one of them. Let's see if I have one of them that I can actually show you. So let's see if I can do this. Okay, let's get rid of the okay. Let's do that. Oh, there you go. Now let me go see if I've got one that I can actually show. So I told you I was making these Disneyland Babylon things that, were these kind of cutouts, and they were just big graphics, and, I basically sold all the originals. So now I'm going through my house and I'm kind of finding, weird things. And this is kind of a work in progress, but I'm putting together these kind of collages that, are tied into Disneyland. And I'm calling the series LS Disneyland. So you can take that and figure out.
LSD,
But it's LS Disneyland,
Yeah.
Some of the other people, it's also, see, I've got a book. I've been included. This is one of my art pieces on Mickey Mouse. Some guy did a whole book on people doing Mickey Mouse. So I'm like right across from Keith Haring. Let's see, Keith Haring's right over here. And what's interesting is on the back side of my page where is it? I think it is. Anyway, they got Michael Jackson to do a Mickey Mouse too. And he's like right like 2 pages away from me. Yeah, see, so they would get different people to do different Mickey Mouses. So Michael Jackson did his kind of looking like the Bad cover from his album Bad, but he put Mickey Mouse's head on himself. So I'm in that book, I've been featured in, books on interesting. There's a book called Pad, the Guide to Ultra Living, that had, stories of people's houses in LA. So my house has been featured in a bunch of like books And actually, there's a TV show called Awesome Interiors that did my house. And even once I got here to Hawaii, you know, my house here in Hawaii got featured in a magazine called At Home, Living in Hawaii. And my house was like featured as a the house of tiki.
Oh yeah, I remember you like tikis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was collecting tikis for the longest time. But a year ago, I sent them all to LA and I sold them all. And I'm using the money to redo my house. The house needed work on it.
Very good.
But yeah, I get, you know, it's kind of the life of the artist, you know. And as you know, my mom was an artist, and that is one of the things that she definitely instilled in me, be as creative as possible.
Yeah.
And that's something that paid off. I gotta
Yeah,
say.
Doug's mom was my absolutely favorite aunt, and we used to laugh sometimes about her pronunciation of some English words, and
Yeah.
one in particular was our word catastrophe, and she would always pronounce it catastrophe. So we had a catastrophe. So
You know-
Alicia and I are always talking about when something goes wrong. We said, "Ah, that was a
I had
catastrophe."
a catastrophe.
Yes.
Just a
I-
few
I-
nights
I think
ago.
I think she played up that French accent, you know, because come
Yeah.
on, all those years, you still that thick an accent.
I know she really
She was-
did have a thick
It's a little bit
accent.
like Zaza Gabor in Green Acres.
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
She was kind of a fish out of water, you know, dressed in her, you know, couturier, but, you know, she'd be standing in the swamps of, you know,
yeah,
the Carolinas in her, you know, Givenchy outfit or whatever.
yeah,
She was very stylish and, you know,
yeah.
Oh,
a very,
Well, Doug, I want to thank you for letting us into your home and letting us into your head just a little bit. That was really cool. We've got John down here listed as Leslie Miller, and Tim, and you probably haven't seen them for a while.
I don't
So,
see pictures of them. Are they on there?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There- yeah,
Maybe you
so-
need to scroll down to they're waving at you.
So
Let's see.
Tim is Will.
There you are. Okay,
Yeah.
wait a second. Let me put on my other glasses.
Just so y'all know, there's
Yeah.
3 brothers in this Miller family, and
There
Will's
he is.
oldest.
I see Leslie. Yes,
Yeah.
that's good.
Tim
That's
is
John.
Tim is middle,
Yes,
and
Tim.
John is the youngest.
Yeah. So
So this was definitely
Hey, I have a question for John. How old are you, John?
no. Oh, John, you need
you're
to
muted. You're muted, John.
I'm trying to
Unmute
figure out, was I
yourself.
the youngest in the whole family? I'm trying to figure out if I was the youngest in the whole family. So I'm turning 70 next week.
Woo.
So- You're younger than me, right?
John,
Can you
go
hear me
down.
now?
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Oh.
I recognize the
Yep.
voice right away.
I'm 70 going on 71.
Oh, so I was the
There you
baby.
go.
You were the youngest, Doug.
You know, when I look at all these family pictures, I'm like, I have a feeling I'm the youngest thing in this whole family, you know.
Well,
And Doug, I'm 76 at this point.
Oh,
there's that many
Right.
trombones.
and it's
Well-
amazing. We're all, you know, we're all getting to do this adventure into, like, you know, into these years. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, again, Doug, thank you so much for
Yeah, but
letting us.
if anybody has
and
any
sharing.
questions, I
Yeah.
mean, this is kind of a unusual, really cool adventure for our club. And you know, once again, Doug, thank you for talking to us on such short notice.
Let's see if I can take it. Let's see. I can't see a picture. Can you see my? Am I taking you out on my?
We can see
Yeah.
you. We can see you.
Can you see? Are you seeing anything? Trees and ocean back
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can see the
This-
trees. Yeah,
This is my little world here in Hawaii. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah,
like
that's the,
That's beautiful.
I'm 900 feet up the volcano,
wow.
and I'm 1 mile
Wow.
away from the ocean. So imagine, you know, the ocean and the Eiffel Tower 1 mile away from it, and a house on top of the Eiffel Tower, and that's what my house is like. So it's 900 feet, and that's how tall
Oh,
the Eiffel.
there's the ocean. Oh, that's so
And-
cool.
And what's really interesting is, for every 100 feet you go up and down, it gets hotter. So I'm
Yeah.
9 degrees cooler than it is down there by the ocean. And as
Wow.
it goes up the hill behind me up there too, it gets really cool up there. So, we have all kinds of temperatures here, which is really kind of fun and interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
That's-
awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Doug? I mean, this is definitely a different meeting than what we're used to, but I think hey, this is really cool. Anybody have any questions?
Well, unrelated to the talk, but have you had snow on the mountain while you were there?
Did he go away?
Doug?
Oh, no, he's still there.
I don't know.
No,
Doug?
he's still there. I don't know, maybe. Hey, Doug, you still there?
Uh-oh.
Doug,
I
you might have
Okay,
lost.
well,
see his name on the screen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
know.
know,
I
I
think
know.
we've just lost some connection.
he may have hit a button.
You may, you may have hit a couple buttons. Well. Well, can you text him? real
Yeah.
quick? See if,
Yeah, yeah. I can try that. Yeah, let me try. Oh, he says I pushed a weird button.
he's a hoot to talk to. This is kind of a first for him. So, well, you know what? Go ahead and ask him if he's seen snow. Hold on.
No, he says there's snow up at 17,000 feet where it belongs, up on top of this mountain. Yeah. Anyway, he says it was fun, and I
Here,
think.
I'm bringing him back in. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked that was back when I was working, it took me to the Big Island once or twice a year, and to the Pacific Basin Ag Research Center in Hilo, which is now the Daniel Inouye Pacific Basin Ag Research Center. But folks that I knew there on the Big Island, their teenage or 20-something kids would make a big deal about going up and snowboarding on the snow early in the day, and then going down and surfing in the afternoon.
The afternoon.
Wow, that's something else. That's something. He's trying to join. I think he might have a poor connection.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
it could be.
well, you know what? I'm going to reiterate. We had very few days to get a speaker. Like I said, our president Malone she's in the Ivory Coast, and she's been taking care of her mom, and she's doing well. But their internet has been very intermittent, and so I mean, here we are. I mean,
Well, it's too bad that Malona wasn't on, because Doug speaks fluent French, and has worked as a translator. And of course, Malona, I think her first language is French. So, but at any rate,
correct.
well,
But,
look, it's really great to have you all on, and I think, yeah.
Hi, do you take a car over winding roads to get way up there on that volcano mountain? And does it take
Yeah.
a long time, or?
Yeah, apparently so.
It's got to be something similar to the Road to Hana, and that is
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that's a hoot.
Yeah, he's
No,
out of the
that
way.
bad. Not that bad, Alicia.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
No.
Okay, because I've been on
The Road to
Hana.
Hana
I've
is-
been on that road. It's
It's
just
a-
like
a whole nother thing.
yeah.
Oh,
He's
goodness.
Doug is definitely off the beaten path,
yeah.
as well as some of his very strange off the grid neighbors. He was telling me there's a whole bunch of ex-spies that live in a gated compound that is totally off grid. No local water, no local electricity, no local internet. They do everything by satellite and solar.
And
Wow.
that is just a whole different way of living. I
Yeah.
mean, it's cool. I'm glad we were able to bring them on.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this was fun. So I have to ask, most of us online, a few not, got to enjoy the tropical storm / Hurricane Debbie. So everybody made it okay?
Yeah, I mean, as I told Alicia yesterday, we were sort of on the very edge and we had some rainfall. In fact, I think it's raining now, but we live between Jacksonville and St. Augustine, and we had a terrible drought during July, badly needed water. So while some people suffered, we certainly appreciated the rain, but again, it wasn't a downpour. It was just a
Yeah.
steady rain.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we had rain at 12 inches an hour at one point. So
Yeah,
Wow, that's
it
that's big.
was-
Yeah.
it
we
was
got some rain.
And,
Yeah.
and I played a whole lot of pickup sticks yesterday. So, but, it's been worse. I said, why pay for a tree trimmer when you could just let a storm come through and take out what needs to be, right?
Yeah.
Alicia and Will, maybe next time I was thinking, with the storm and Naples and whatever, I really loved it. What is it now? About 3-4 years ago when we had the really, really big hurricane and each of us called 2 or 3 Rotarians and how they're doing. Can we maybe next month when Malona gets back on, we can certainly maybe the board, we can have a few names and call the people right after the storm, how
Right.
they're doing or whatever. So that would be really great. So maybe divvy them up. And any other
We can
Rotarians
do
want to help
that.
us out, I think would be really nice.
Yeah, like it's like a telephone tree.
Right.
Yeah, what I ended up doing, because I've got other things on my plate, but what I ended up doing was texting all the members that I knew were gonna be the most strongly hit and making sure they were okay. I mean, but you're right, we should go ahead and do that. Maloney even suggested that we postpone this meeting for a week till next week, just because cleanup can be, the stress after a storm and cleanup can be such a priority. And Will and I talked about it and we're just like, we knew this was going to be more of a lighthearted meeting with Doug, and so we decided to go ahead and just go with the meeting, and if anybody wanted to just kind of, say, we're doing okay, or, I could use a little help or whatever, that we could use this platform. But yeah, Andy, you're right. We did think about doing it. And if the next storm that comes through, if it looks like it's gonna be, even more so.
Yeah, we'll refer all that to our club disaster committee.
Yeah,
That's Will.
that's well. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right.
All right,
Alicia.
so,
Alicia, I do appreciate you checking on us, though. I was glad to get your email and respond that everything's fine.
yeah,
We're okay, and I'm glad we went ahead and had the Zoom meeting. It was interesting to
he's
some cousin Doug, is it?
Yes.
he's literally a character. So yeah, so we've got Will, and then Tim, and then John, this is Leslie. Those are the 3 brothers. Doug is her cousin, sort of. That's another story. But it was, no, it was good, and I'm glad that my future daughter-in-law was on, and see my dad's still on. So we've got coming up, and let's just say, let's just give us 5 minutes. We are gonna do as much as we can of a board meeting. Andy Hammond, you're more than welcome to stay on and join us. So are you, Ray. Actually, everybody, the meeting's open to all members. Are more than welcome to join us. It's gonna probably prove to be rather short because we don't have our 2 primary speakers that we really need to have on right now, which is Malona and Vince. But I think we can speak to Will, you're on mute.
We're gonna take 5.
Yeah, we're gonna take about 5. So
Well, thank you for the invite.
Alicia,
This has
thanks
been
for the
great.
invite, but I think I'm gonna sign off.
Yes.
more than welcome.
All
Dad,
right.
good to see you. Talk to you later.
All right. Thank you very
John
much.
and Tim,
Yeah,
always a pleasure to see you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Good to see
Bye.
you.
All right, we'll resume in 5.